Greetings to every one of you that are present in the conference. You're there in person. My greetings to you. And I want to greet those that are watching online as well. I want to thank God for this conference. This conference is the theme is reconciliation, restoration, and refreshing. And my heart desire as I share the word, just to add to what has been shared already so far, as I share this word, I want the hearts of every single individual to be seriously ministered to. You know, even though it says the four women, it is for everyone, but I do want women to take particular note. I want your faith to be stirred. I want there to be a new consciousness that will arise on the inside of you, knowing that there's nothing that you cannot do when you understand who you are and whose you are. So without much ado, I'm going to go into the message for this time. I don't know how many of you watched the adverts that were put out for this conference. There's a particular advert that I saw, and this advert was very interesting. It was an advert where they just showed the feet of people walking. So the first footsteps was a child walking. Then after that, there was a young man walking. You only see their feet. And after that, you now see a group of a family, the women walking. And when I began to look at the advert, I thought to myself, wow, I saw 8 women. I counted. There was 8 women and 3 youth, and then 1 child, 3 children. And I was like, wow, whoever did this advert, they got the memo, because this message is really gonna hit on women. 8 women in that advert, 8 women. So if you're a woman sitting next to a man at this particular point in time, I want you to nudge that man and tell that man, this conference is for me. I'm a woman. This conference is for me. Anyway, let's go ahead. Go with me to the book of Matthew chapter 1. We're going to look at the lives of 4 different women. Now, I want us to look at the genealogy of Jesus, because it's here that we see these 4 women mentioned. So I'm going to start from verse 1 of Matthew chapter 1, and it reads, "This is the record of the ancestors of Jesus the Messiah, a descendant of David and of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar." Now that's the first woman, whose mother was Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Aminadab. Aminadab was the father of Nahshon. Nahshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. So that's the second woman, Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. That's the third woman. And Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother was Bathsheba, the widow of Uriah. Now, I found this very interesting when I was reading this genealogy it was about 2 months ago or so. I was reading it, and I thought to myself, wow, why did God choose to make mention of these 4 women? They did mention Mary as well, but it's these 4 women that I'm interested in. I just had this impression in my heart. Look at the lives of these women. Go on to the stories that talk about these women and see what you can glean from their character. See what you can learn from them. And that's why we're going to look at each woman, spend time to look at Tamar, spend time to look at Rahab, spend time to look at Ruth, and then spend time to look at Bathsheba. So we're going to go first to the first story, and that's the story of Tamar. So turn with me to Genesis chapter 38. And to Genesis 38. And we're reading from verse 1. I'm going to read quite quickly through each of the stories. I'm going to be as quick as I can so that I can get out all the points that I want to get out. But I'm going to read, it's not too long, because it's just about 30 verses. So I'll read speedily. And as I'm going along, what I'll do is stop and give my points as I'm going along. So that saves us time. So here we go. About this time, that's Genesis chapter 38 from verse 1. About this time, Judah left home and moved to Adullam, where he stayed with a man named Hira. There he saw a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Shua, and he married her. When he slept with her, she became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and he named the boy Then she became pregnant again and gave birth to another son, and she named him Onan. And when she gave birth to a third son, she named him Shelah. At the time of Shelah's birth, they were living at Kezib. Verse 6. In the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son, to marry a young woman named Tamar. Now here it is. When I got to this verse, I thought to myself, okay, Tamar, her marriage was arranged. Tamar didn't choose, it was not by choice. It was an arranged marriage. So now, I want every woman listening to me now, I want you to imagine put yourself in the shoes of Tamar. Please let us not look at these stories that we're going to look at, these four women we're going to look at. Don't look at it with the 21st century eye. Think about how it was in their days. Think about the culture that these women were being brought up in. Just think about that time and realize that a lot of the women at that time had no choice over who they married. A lot of the marriages at that time was arranged. And here it doesn't tell us anything about Tamar, that just that she was arranged, her marriage was arranged to marry and she had no idea the kind of man she was getting married to. And the story now tells us. So in the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son to marry a young woman named Tamar. But was a wicked man in the Lord's sight. So the Lord took his life. We don't know what he did, but he was a wicked man. So you can imagine Tamar's living with this man. A lot of women, we get married and we actually get married in faith, because we leave our family and going to a family we don't know what we're going to expect there. We don't know how our in-laws are going to be. And if your marriage is arranged, you don't even know the man, how he's going to be. And here the Torah tells us that was wicked. He was a wicked man. So can you imagine what Tamar would have been going through in the hands of this man? Can you imagine her mental state? Because if he was that wicked that God had to have him killed, then you know that Tamar's marriage couldn't have been a brilliant one. Anyway, let's continue. So it says here, then Judah said to Er's brother Onan, go and marry Tamar, as our law requires of the brother of a man who has died. You must produce an heir for your brother. Now here we go. Here, look at this situation. Tamar has to now marry her husband's brother. So because husband has died and had no children, she had no children for him, she now has to be married off to her husband's brother. She may not have liked the guy. She may not. It's not. But in her situation, there was no choice. She had no choice. She had to do it because that was the law at that time. That was the law at that time, because her brother-in-law had to produce an heir for his brother. But look at Tamar's situation now. Not only did she marry a husband that was wicked and the Lord had him when he was killed, look at the brother-in-law. Look how bad he was. Verse 9, but Onan was not willing to have a child who would not be his own heir. So whenever he had intercourse with his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground. This prevented her from having a child who would belong to his brother. Can you imagine you're having intercourse with your so-called husband, and when it comes to that time to release, he spills it onto the ground? What was he indirectly doing? He was denying Tamar the opportunity to become a mother. And you know how we are as women. When we enter our matrimonial home, the next thing is a child. And unfortunately for Tamar, her husband was wicked. He died, so she couldn't have a child by him. And this one now was pouring the semen on the ground. Imagine the mental torment. Imagine what she was going through. And there are a lot of women that are going, it may not be this particular situation that you're facing, but there may be something that you're experiencing in your home that is painful, that is hurting, and you can't tell people about it. Who is she going to tell people? Who is she going to say? Who is she going to tell her? Or go to her sister-in-law and tell her sister-in-law, your brother, he's not, and go to any of the relatives and tell the relatives, this is what your brother, my so-called husband is doing. You can't talk about it. It's not something you talk about, something that goes on in your bedroom. You won't want to talk about that outside. So you can imagine the torment that Tamar felt at this time. But God sees. God sees, and God saw that what he was doing was bad. So even though she couldn't talk to man, but God saw. And what did God do? So he says here, but the Lord considered it evil for Onan to deny a child to his dead brother. So the Lord took Onan's life too. You may look there and say, but at least God helped Tamar in that respect. She couldn't talk to anyone about it. There are situations you can't talk to people about, but God will come through. God will step in one way or the other to help you. Have that confidence, please. And Tamar, he chose this way to do away with him because God knew that what he was doing was wrong. Verse 11. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, go back to your parents' home and remain a widow until my son Shelah is old enough to marry you. But Judah didn't really intend to do this because he was afraid Shelah would also die like his two brothers. Here is Judah. His first son has died. And the first son died because of his wickedness. The second son died because of his own wickedness, what he did to Tamar, not allowing her to have a child. So as far as Judah was concerned, in his mind, it was Tamar's fault. So she was stigmatized. You can imagine what Judah would have been saying and thinking about this woman. And so he said to himself, okay, go back to your parents. Don't worry. When my young son is old enough to marry, I'll call you back. But he's lying. But Tamar, the woman was a good woman. She went back as she was instructed to do. And she waited. She was faithful. She stayed. She held on. Even though maybe in her mind, she was thinking, maybe this man, because I'm sure a couple of years have passed, because when you look at verse 12, some years later, Judah's wife died. After the time of mourning was over, Judah and his friend Hira, the Dulamite, went up to Timnah to supervise the shearing of his sheep. Someone told Tamar, look, your father-in-law is going to Timnah to shear his sheep. Oh, so that means that Tamar had kept herself. How many women will do that in this day and age? Because I'm very sure after the first year or second year or third year, in your heart, you'll be thinking, this man is lying. He's not going to, the promise he's made to me, he will not do it. I'm going to go out and do it, enjoy my life and find someone else. But Tamar, no, the beautiful woman, she remained. She stayed faithful. Even though Judah was unfaithful to her, he didn't keep his promise. She maintained herself. And look what happened. Verse 14. Tamar was aware that Shelah had grown up, but no arrangements had been made for her to come and marry him. So she changed out of her widow's clothing. See, she was still wearing her widow's clothing after all these years. What kind of faithfulness is that? That is, in fact, some women by now would have given up, but she still had hope. So she changed out of her widow's clothing and covered herself with a veil to disguise herself. Then she sat beside the road at the entrance to the village of Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. Judah noticed her and thought she was a prostitute, since she had covered her face. So he stopped and propositioned her. Let me have sex with you, he said, not realizing that she was his own daughter-in-law. How much will you pay to have sex with me? Tamar asked. I will send you a young goat from my flock, Judah promised. But what will you give me to guarantee that you will send the goat? Now look at this. Tamar had waited all these years. She had been obedient. She had been submissive. But you know, sometimes we are pressed. We as women, at times we can be pressed to do things that we wouldn't normally have done. But because of the situation, circumstance we find ourselves in, and in this case, Tamar had been denied of being a mother. And she was like, look, who else is going to take me? Who else is going to have me? People are mocking me already. Let me help myself. This is where her self-help came in. I'm not advocating or recommending that you do something like this, but this one was pushed to the wall. There are times we are pushed to the wall. But God sees us as women. God sees you. He sees you as a woman. He sees what you're going through. God saw the heart of Tamar. God saw the heart of Tamar. So look what happened. You know what she did? She said, but what will you give me to guarantee that you will send the goat? She asked. What kind of guarantee do you want? He replied. Now this is where wisdom came in. She was clever. She answered, leave me your identification seal and its cord and the walking stick you are carrying. These are the three things that identified Judah, showed his authority. Once that somebody sees that seal and that cord and that walking stick, they will know straight away who it is. And so she was clever enough to say, give me these three things. So Judah gave them to her. Then he had intercourse with her and she became pregnant. Afterwards, she went back home and took off her veil and put on her widow's clothing as usual. Later, Judah asked his friend Hira, the Adullamite, to take the young goat to the woman and to pick up the things he had given her as his guarantee. But Hira couldn't find her. So he asked the men who lived there, where can I find the shrine prostitute who was sitting beside the road at the entrance to Enaim? We've never had a shrine prostitute here, they replied. So Hira returned to Judah and told him, I couldn't find her anywhere. And the men of the village claim they've never had a shrine prostitute there. Then let her keep the things I gave her, Judah said. I sent the young goat as we agreed, but you couldn't find her. We'll be the laughing stock of the village if we went back again to look for her. Verse 24. About 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has acted like a prostitute. And now, because of this, she's pregnant. You can imagine Judah now. This is an opportunity. Let's deal with this woman, and I won't have her to bother me anymore. See, the thought of the fact that I have to give my son is over now. But as they were taking her to kill her, she sent this message to her father-in-law. You know, there's a time in your life that when it looks as if you're going to be brought down, when it looks as if there's no hope for you, but you see an opportunity where you can be bold to stand up for yourself, please seize the moment. Tamar was bold. She said, listen, no. But as they were taking her to kill her, she sent this message to her father-in-law. The man who owns these things made me pregnant. Look closely. Whose seal and cord and walking stick are these? Verse 26. Judah recognized them immediately and said, she is more righteous than I am, because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shelah. And Judah never slept with Tamar again. Yes, she did help herself, but Judah recognized that this woman is more righteous than me. What I did was wrong. There are times in our lives, to everyone, but particularly to women here, there are times when you feel that what I'm going through, nobody sees. But I'm here to tell you that God sees, and He's really willing and able to step into your story. He stepped into the story of Tamar A woman who had an arranged marriage and the person she married was wicked, he died. The second person she had to go with, the brother-in-law, was wicked, and he also died. And then the so-called father-in-law was not good to her. So she had to help herself. But you know, God is so merciful and God is so kind. Whatever it is you're facing right now, take courage or take hope that God is able to step into your story. He stepped into the story of Tamar. The tables ran for her. And her name was mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus. Is that it? Anybody looking at Tamar would never have believed that would happen. Anyone looking at you, you're going through, will think there's no hope for this one. But believe you me, so long as you're a covenant child of the Most High God, so long as you know who you are and whose you are, there's hope for you. As there was hope for Tamar, there's hope for you. So from this story, that's what I want you to understand. That don't lose hope. God sees you. God sees you and he is willing and he's able to step into your story. That's the life of Tamar. I want us to now go to look at the life of Rahab. And we look at this in Joshua chapter 2. Joshua chapter 2. Now this is an interesting one. Tamar had an arranged marriage, okay? But in this case, Ruth, according to the scriptures, was a prostitute. It was a prostitute. Go with me to Joshua chapter 2, and we'll read from verse 1. Then Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the Israelite camp of Acacia Grove. He instructed them, scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho. So the 2 men set out and came to the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there that night. Listen to me. Rahab was a prostitute. People knew her as a prostitute in Jericho. Of course they did. But it doesn't matter your station or your status in life. Don't let that disqualify you from seizing an opportunity or a moment that will help you in life. If Rahab had thought to herself, I'm a prostitute, there's nothing, then these men staying in my house, is that even possible? But she seized the moment. The men came and they stayed with her. Now look what happened. Look at the story. Verse 2. But someone told the king of Jericho, some Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, bring out the men who have come into your house, for they have come here to spy out the land. Rahab had hidden the 2 men, but she replied, yes, the men were here earlier, but I didn't know where they were from. They left the town at dusk as the gates were about to close. I don't know where they went. If you hurry, you can probably catch up with them. Actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them beneath the bundles of flax she had laid out. So the king's men went looking for the spies along the road leading to the shallow crossings of the Jordan River. And as soon as the king's men had left, the gate of Jericho was shut. Before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went up on the roof to talk with them. Now, this is Rahab. Rahab, like the rest of the people, had heard what the God of Israel had done for them. Listen to, and we see what he says in verse 9. I know the Lord has given you this land, she told them. We were all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror. For we have heard how the Lord made a dry path for you through the Red Sea when you left Egypt. And we know what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. No wonder our hearts have melted in fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. For the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below. Now verse 12. Now swear to me by the Lord that you be. She took the risk to put these men up in her house. But after taking the risk, because she knew that these men, the spies are coming because they're coming to destroy Jericho. So she was wise. She negotiated for herself and for her family. She didn't mind that people considered a prostitute. She used the opportunity to negotiate for herself and her family, because in her heart, she knew that these people were of God. You know, situations, circumstances may face you in life, but you may come across some people that you know, God is giving you the impression that these people, they will help you, or this person will take you where you truly want to go. But because of the way, because of who, maybe because of the way you are in that community, or because the life you're living may not be that brilliant, or you've been known in the past to do things, to have done some bad things, don't let that put you down or stop you from acting on what you believe is God telling you to do. Please. And this Rahab, she knew. She was not going to be like the others. She said, this is my opportunity. This is my opportunity for change, and I'm going to seize it. So I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to negotiate for my own freedom. She had that courage. We ought to have that courage. We ought to have that courage. And so when she negotiated, she said, they said in verse 14, we offer our own lives as a guarantee for your safety. The men agreed. If you don't betray us, we will keep our promise and be kind to you when the Lord gives us the land. Then, since Rahab's house was built into the town wall, she let them down by a rope through the window. Escape to the hill country, she told them. Hide there for 3 days from the men searching for you. Then when they have returned, you can go on your way. Before they left, the men told her, we will be bound by the oath we have taken only if you follow these instructions. Now, this is very crucial. When we come into the land, you must leave this scarlet rope hanging from the window through which you let us down. And all your family members, your father, mother, brothers, and all your relatives must be here inside the house. If they go out into the street and are killed, it will not be our fault. But if anyone lays a hand on people inside this house, we will accept the responsibility for their death. If you betray us, however, we are not bound by this oath in any way. Verse 21, I accept your terms, she replied, and she sent them on their way, leaving the scarlet rope hanging from the window. Now, we know the rest of the story. You know what happened when they came back. Jericho, the walls of Jericho collapsed, and Joshua told them, the spies, go get go get Rahab and her family, bring them out. But you see, what I want to bring out in this particular part we've just read, they gave her, she negotiated for her freedom, and they instructed her, this is what you've got to do. If you do this, then we see this scarlet ribbon hanging from your window, will definitely save you and everyone that's in your household. So Rahab had a responsibility. Yes, she took the risk. She negotiated for the freedom of her family, but at the same time, she had to do what they told her to do. You know, sometimes we take risks, we negotiate, we do things for ourselves, but the little things that we are told, God may tell you to do this, follow this particular path. And if you don't follow this particular path, A, B, C, D won't happen the way you want it to happen. Rahab could have, I'm very sure, after putting the scarlet ribbon in front of her window, people would have been asking her, what's that scarlet ribbon doing? Hanging outside your window. They know she's a prostitute. There's here, Rahab's come again. What's she doing? Let's pull that scarlet ribbon down. She may have had to, from time to time, Ensure, look out the window, make sure nobody has torn it down, nobody has got rid of it, because she knows that her life depends on that scarlet ribbon hanging on that window. There's instructions, there's things that God will tell us to do, and your life depends on it. What God doing that thing for you is determined by you doing what He has asked you to do. As a woman, there are certain things that God may ask us to do in our homes, in order for things to go the way God wants it to go for us. We must be obedient to instructions. If we want God to step into our story, if we want God to move the way He desires to move in our lives, we must be obedient to what He tells us to do. If Rahab hadn't kept that scarlet ribbon, her and her family would have been destroyed. It doesn't matter whether she negotiated with them in the beginning, she would have been destroyed, because she did not do what they told them to do. So it is crucial in our walk as women, and also as our walk as men, we must be obedient. Rahab was obedient. She kept the instructions. And what happened? Her name also ended up in the genealogy of Jesus. So I want from these two women's lives, I want you to be encouraged. Like Tamar, be faithful. She remained faithful, even though she knew that Judah, he wouldn't keep his word, but she remained faithful, and God stepped into her story. Rahab, that God would be able to do something for her. She wanted to make sure that she is also saved. So she took the risk. She negotiated. And she obeyed the instructions. So her and her family were saved. It doesn't matter her status in life. It doesn't matter the fact that she was a prostitute. What mattered is that she knew, she was convinced in her heart that this is my time, this is my opportunity. When you know that it's your opportunity, when you know it's God that is the one moving you to do what He's asking you to do it. Don't be afraid. Take the step out and do what you believe in your heart is God telling you to do. And He will definitely step into your story. We'll continue on the next session.